rags and riches, hieroglyphics off the wall. There's no strife in the afterlife, unwind and have a ball. Pyramids have power and secrets stashed away.
Hello, Scoopsters.
Hello, fools and ghouls. Today we are joined by, first, we have, he is currently a senior TV major at Hofstra, the producer of 2 Weeks Notice, co-creator of Safety in Numbers, dog and bread connoisseur, fruit expert, Survivor, Big Brother, MasterChef superfan, secretary of Ben Kessler Inc., writer and actor in the critically acclaimed TV series Pickle, starring Lukey Becher and Ricky Wood, friend of Ricky Wood, son of Tom Hanks, and fan of all things Ben Kessler. Here he is, the talented, the knowledgeable, the great-smelling, and hilarious one-of-a-kind friend, Lukey Becher.
Hello, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk about dogs.
Thanks so much for being on, Luke. We're already laughing. I have a feeling this is going to be good. Today, we also, as you can see, have on, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the one, the only, Henry Gerberson. It's Ricky Wood. Thank you so much for coming on, Ricky. And
I'm sorry that Henry couldn't be here. I'm in his place.
we also have a very special third guest. It's a large crew we have tonight. They are Rosa Edwards. Thank you so much for coming on, Rosa.
Thank you. I'm Luke's hot roommate, as I've been referred to many a time before.
Yes, and I'm Rosa's weird roommate.
Yeah.
This is very true. And today we're going to be talking about all things Scooby-Doo, Where's My Mummy? It is a direct-to-video 2005 movie. In last episode, Kalle, we talked about Scooby-Doo and the Legend of the Vampire, which is very much in the same vein of this animation style. But before we dive into the movie, starting with Luke, why'd you want to be on the podcast today? And we'll go around and just give a little bit. Did you watch Scooby as a child? What prompted you to say, I want to talk some Scooby?
Well, as we all know, Scooby-Doo is a Great Dane. And that was always my mom's favorite dog breed growing up. So I've always known Scooby-Doo as like a Great Dane, but nothing really else. I never really watched it as a child. I own Scooby-Doo 2, the movie, the one with the monsters, and the one with the monster. I don't really know all the monsters, but I know one that he's like a scuba mask, I think. I don't really remember. But anyways, yeah, Great Danes are pretty cool, but just trying to figure out how to get dogs to talk, I think, in the real world. I think that would be pretty awesome.
Thank you. And Ricky, why did you want to be on the pod today?
Well, two of my greatest friends are here, Luke and Ben. Love them. I was asked to join, and I was very delighted to. Growing up, I was a pretty big Scooby fan. I used to watch Scooby and Friends when Batman would come on, or the Globetrotters, or the Three Stooges. They would come on sometimes. I loved all the DVD movies like Cyber Chase, the Hex Girls one, the Alien one, the movies, the live action movies. I watched those a lot. The dogs, the comedy, the references, the pop culture influence. Yeah.
Thanks. And Rosa, why were you interested in hopping on the Scooby-Doo podcast, the premier Scooby-Doo podcast, I should add?
I was asked to be on this podcast by Lucas and Benjamin. Quite upstanding folk. I'll never do them wrong. I've been a fan of Scooby-Doo since I was a little child. I have a little Scooby-Doo blanket, and I've been a fan of mummies for a couple years now. And so when I realized I could combine these two passions of mine, I didn't want to let that slide. There's no way I was going to let that, slip past my radar.
Great opportunity and a great segue going right into the movie. We watched Scooby-Doo, Where's My Mummy, 2005. It's after that. What we've been talking about a lot, Kalle, has been that late 90s, very early 2000s direct-to-home video. This is more of almost in this movie is like 3D kind of animation style sometimes. They're really cool, different types of animation shots where they rotate around scenes. And this Scooby-Doo movie is one that I think flies under the radar a bit because it's just kind of random. They kind of picked mummies as a theme and we're like, okay, Egypt. Kalle, on the rewatch, anything strike you just watching it through? You know, Casey Kasem, Frank Welker, obviously as the two really staple voice actors, and I'm sure we'll get into if we enjoyed them, but just right away, anything that you took out of the movie.
So just like the last one we talked about, Legend of the Vampire, the animation is very similar to the What's New Scooby-Doo animation. So again, it's weird hearing the voice actors, but with this animation style, like from the old show. But and also I think this was maybe my first time actually watching this one all the way through, because when I got to the end, I had no memory of ever seeing that before. So I enjoyed watching this one because I think it actually genuinely was my first time watching it. I had no memory of this one from childhood.
Anyone else on the rewatch, general thoughts about the movie, watching all the way through? Luke?
Yeah, I was kind of not impressed by the animation. I didn't know what year it came out when I first watched it, or when I was like halfway through it, and I looked it up and it was like 2005. I was like, if you were to ask me like before I looked that up, I would have guessed like 1991 or like early 90s. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think anything really was visually impressive with this movie, especially like being made in 2005.
Can I also add that the 3D animation in this movie was especially awful. The locust scene when Cleopatra has all these locusts coming out from behind her, and you can see like multiple layers of them like laid over each other. It was really horrible. I didn't like it. Good movie overall. No, I take average movie overall.
Yeah, it has like a 3-star average rating on Letterboxd. So like I was kind of like, that's a little high. I gave it a 1 when I personally rated it.
Wow. And we'll get into the ratings towards the end, but Ricky, on the watch, I know before we start recording right now, you mentioned that you had some qualms with the voice acting in this.
I did. The animation, unforgivable. It's 2005. New technology was coming out. They wanted to try everything. Today, I was just talking about, you know, where did the whole 3D craze? It just disappeared, you know. But that's beside the point. Animation, I don't care. The real problem is the terrible, terrible voice acting by most of the actors. Casey Kasem as Shaggy, he's a legend. He has never done me wrong, but I feel like in this one, he just kind of gave up. You know, he like, this is a good. One of the things I liked about this movie was that it focused more on like Fred and Daphne and Velma, which I thought was cool, and it was less about Shaggy and Scooby. But Shaggy sucked. His voice was not good. It was kind of cheesy. It was just kind of like an over caricature of what Shaggy's supposed to sound like. And then the Scooby character, what the hell was that? He was just, I don't know, like, it's just like he just laughed every time he'd talk, and it just wasn't good. And I like cried too much. It pissed me off, quite frankly. And I was really upset with how the voice acting went.
Yeah, I was
what else?
I was also really annoyed by Scooby. I wrote that down. I wrote Scooby is annoying, and then his catchphrase, Scooby-Doo or whatever. He said it 5 times in the movie. I counted. I was just like,
Yeah,
all right,
was,
like, we get it.
It was so forced. It was so forced. And then, oh no, there's that scene where I think Shaggy trips in the sand. He like lets out like a scream, but like it was just agonizing. It was so bad. And then that's when Velma feeds them Scooby snacks, and Scooby says his catchphrase the first time, and then Shaggy's like, "Well, what about me?" And Shaggy too. I was like, "Shut up, dude! Shut up."
I
Go ahead.
I had a big problem with I feel like Scooby in this movie had no personality. Scooby-Doo usually has a big personality, but in this movie it seemed to be Shaggy would make a joke, and it's always a bad joke. It was never good. And then Scooby-Doo would repeat the last word of the joke, and that was the whole bit. And that was unforgivable
the
in
whole
my
bit.
eyes.
Scooby, though, to the point, to fill in some plot for any listeners out there, The movie really starts off. We have a nice cold open about Egypt, whatever. Okay. Ooh, cool. Pharaohs, Sphinx. Ooh, it's all this little stuff that they throw in there as like little antiques. A big part of the plot that I enjoyed, though, was how quick it goes from like first act, second act, third act. Was the action scenes I thought in this one were fairly enjoyable just because of the music alone and just based on. There were a few quirky jokes. There's the AAA joke at the start with fixing the van, and they named a character AAA. Cool, good for him. And there's a joke where Cleopatra is in their canoe, and Shaggy says, like, she's right behind us. And then it pans over, and she's in the same canoe as them. And I let out a chuckle. And a
That's good.
big thing heading in to the plot wise too was I think we have to go straight to the end with this big twist that I know is going to be controversial. Velma turning out to be Cleopatra, the mummy Cleopatra, who is apparently has a whole undead army. Kalle, just to go first, what were your thoughts on this twist heading in?
I don't really think the twist paid off because this entire movie was, in my mind, more of an adventure movie than a mystery movie. So the idea that this big twist is like, we weren't supposed to see that coming. It was like, I don't really care at this point. Like, we get it. You guys had an adventure and went through this whole thing and everybody's safe. I don't really care who it was or what happened. Let's be done. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, this movie felt very Indiana Jones-esque. From everything like where they were to like they were running into booby traps and like their ultimate goal. And I was wondering like what came first, like Indiana Jones or Scooby-Doo, Where's My Mummy? Obviously it was Indiana Jones, but
I wouldn't be so sure.
Yeah.
I said
it was like a combination of Tomb Raider and Mummy, the Mummy movies, which is interesting because the guy who does the voice for AAA is the same guy who played the Egyptian guide in the Mummy movies. I thought that was cool. Nice little nod to great cinema pieces starring Brendan Fraser.
The twist also, though, revolves around the Nile River having no water.
Which is what? That's bad.
This reminded me of Wonder Woman 1984, where, for those that have not seen it, a twist in that movie is that suddenly a huge wall gets erected in somewhere in the Middle East, I forget where, and people from one side can now just not go to the other side, just randomly and supernaturally. And it felt kind of supernatural. At one point, Shaggy and Scooby are just riding on a flying carpet. When it comes to the twist, though, Velma reveals herself and then just kind of says, I didn't want you guys to get in danger. Do we buy this? Why do we think Velma wouldn't tell her friends about this?
I don't know if I can really buy it fully. I don't necessarily know what Velma's motivations are, but it doesn't seem like the noble thing to do instead of talk your friends out of it or assist them and make sure they don't get hurt, because obviously there was a lot of planning and preparation behind this. She has the resources to make sure that like nothing bad would happen, but instead of doing that, erects a faux undead army and tries to trick her friends. I think she was probably trying to keep the treasure for herself, but that's just my take.
Okay, obviously you've never been in a situation like that before. So
obviously.
So I say that I believe Velma, because for the last however many episodes you've been doing this, all you do is talk about how hot Velma is. But now she does something kind of questionable. You're like, oh, I don't know if she's, if I believe her or not. I'm going to start a new movement called Believe Hot Women. And it's just, if a woman's hot, you just believe her. And I'm going to start going by that now. So I believe Velma. She's hot. I'm going to start following whatever it is she says. Thank you.
This is a note for future Ben, who's editing this, to keep this part in and take out the part where I said Gaza instead of Pyramids of Giza.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
But you believe Velma based on just her
Her
appearance,
looks, yes.
just based on her appearance, do you think it has anything to do with Omar, the prince?
You like she's trying to impress him?
She's trying to, maybe split the treasure, maybe take it for herself and make sure the prince gets none. He's already a prince. I'm sure he's rich.
No,
Right, but
I think Velma's trying to impress her friends, and that's why she didn't tell them. She was like, "Look at me, I can pull off this whole thing. And they're not even gonna know until the very end when I tell them. Tee hee hee, I'm so smart." And then
Never considered that.
that's what I think it was.
Luke, do you have any thoughts on the twist with Velma coming out as Cleopatra? And there's multiple Cleopatras, so it feels like there are multiple plans at the end of this and multiple twists, but the big one being that Velma dupes her friends for seemingly only to keep them in the dark for the fun of it.
Yeah, like I had a big question while watching this movie, and like still even after watching it, was like, is the magic in the Scooby-Doo universe, is it like real, or is it like is there magic, or is there like explanations for all the magic? Because like Cleopatra was alive, but no, she wasn't. It was Velma in a costume all this time. But like I was like thinking like, oh, there's probably explanations for all the magic that happens. But then they go on a carpet and they fly around, and there's obviously magic there. I was kind of confused with the magic carpet.
this
And also,
reminds
like, they
me
cut
of
it in half, and the carpet fell to the ground. So when you cut a magic carpet in half, is it two magic carpets, or is it just one magic carpet?
It's one broken
This-
magic carpet,
I
I
think
believe.
this reminds me of a quote that Fred said during the film where he said, "I'm sure this can all be easily explained." Oh, I guess it can't.
This is
Maybe
another,
that's the real magic of this movie.
it's another Scooby-Doo movie where if you think about it, the worse it's going to get. And Kalle and I do this every time. We dig deeper into these questions, questioning the reality of a Scooby-Doo animated movie. And each time we kind of just fill in the gaps on our own. And this leads me into a great question we've been asking every time, which is, does Scooby-Doo know that he's a dog? Now, there's no moments like in other movies where Scooby-Doo will look around when they say dog and he'll go, "Rog, where?" That doesn't happen in this one. But what does happen is when he is the supposed pharaoh to a cult, which we'll get into, there's a cult in this movie. But when he's Scoobus, which I laughed at when they just said Scoobus.
That's good. That's good writing.
And they say, "You are, the pharaoh Scoobus." And he goes, "Huh? Me?" Scoobus sounds like Scooby. Okay, let's not be dumb here.
Is Scoobus a real word?
I don't.
Let me
Or is
correct
it like
the
a-
record
is
real
it
It's
quick.
based off Anubis.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's
I was-
actually-
So just to start with Kalle, in this movie, is Scooby-Doo aware that he is a dog? Because I think this little moment is just another little indicator that maybe Scooby isn't even aware that he's like alive.
Okay, so there's a moment in this movie where Shaggy opens like the little tomb thing and Scooby's in there and he goes, "Instead of King Tut, I found King Mutt." And Scooby doesn't go like, "Mutt? Where?" He says, "King Mutt," and then laughs, but he doesn't question it. Like he doesn't know that he's the Mutt. So I think in this movie, he does know he's a dog because he's never confused, really. He doesn't question people when they refer to him as a mutt. So I think in this movie, he does actually know he's a dog.
I kind of think for all intents and purposes, in this movie, Scooby doesn't know anything. Scooby's an automaton. He's a hollow a hollow shell of what Scooby usually is. And when he says King Mutt, that's not him just agreeing that he's the mutt and he's the dog. That's him like doing his little programmed response.
This is my favorite theory we've had yet, that Scooby-Doo is in fact in this movie not Scooby-Doo, and which is why I've been saying that Scooby doesn't know that he's a dog, and that in this movie I was going to say Scooby is aware that he is a dog. And your theory, Rosa, just confirms it to me that means that Scooby is not Scooby in this movie. Luke, any thoughts on what's going on with Scooby in this movie? Does he know he's a dog? Is he a robot?
Well, I think one of the main like indicators of whether or not he knows he's a dog is the Scooby snacks. Right? Is that what some of the consensus is?
Well,
but
Shaggy
to go-
also eats the Scooby snacks, though.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I was just gonna say, like, I thought it was weird that Velma had Scooby snacks in the desert randomly.
Yeah.
And I think
Well,
that if he was a dog. I don't think he's a dog. I think he's actually 3/4 dog, 1/4 human, because he can talk. And so he's kind of like a hybrid. I think he's in the middle, and I think he knows that he's a hybrid. Anyways, but like, if they knew like he was a dog, like 100%, then I don't think they would have the Scooby snacks with them.
My first idea when you were saying that Scooby is 3/4 dog, 1/4 human, is that when they announced Scoobus as well, that means that Scooby is related to a pharaoh, a dog pharaoh, or a human pharaoh. Now it's up in the air. But that also Scooby, we don't know if like this prophecy of Scoobus is true, because later in the film, they say something along the lines of Scooby and Shaggy kind of question it. And AAA says something like fate brought you here, basically that, which we don't know if Velma was making up these things, because it seems like Velma was more aware of the pyramid than she let on. But at the same time, everything in the pyramid except for the undead seems to be real. So there's this leeway between, well, is the prophecy real? Is there really a Scoobus? Which I think Scooby-Doo needs an ancestry test. Kaylee, remember that. That's the title of this episode. Does Scooby-Doo need a genealogy test? Yeah. Ricky, thoughts on if Scooby-Doo knows he's a dog?
Okay, so at first I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, what if there are multiple Scooby-Doos? You know, like what if there are like alternate universes where some Scoobies are aware of their canine ness, or and some aren't. But then that made me think about a theory posited by Magic Finger, where they said that and after the cyber chase, that they could have just replaced each other, like Jordan Peele Us. So I was thinking that this movie came out a few years after Cyber Chase, and I don't know what movies came out in between those two, or if Scooby-Doo made any of those jokes, but this could very well be Cyber Chase Scooby-Doo in this movie, being like, that's why he kind of sucks, because he's not the real Scooby. He's just like a carbon copy of what somebody thought Scooby was like, and they put him in a video game, and now he's in the real world, and he's not as cool as he once was. Also, another theory I had was, what if Scooby-Doo is a human and we all just perceive him as a dog? But my big theory, the one I'm going with, is that he is the Scooby-Doo Cyber Chase Scooby-Doo.
We're gonna need a chart. You're connecting movies, but I'm kind of more interested in your second theory there, that we perceive.
Okay, well then that's the one I'm going with.
That we perceive Scooby as a dog just because that's easier, maybe, to see him as that. Is he just too powerful? Maybe that's why he can talk.
Like maybe I'm going a little too far with this here, but stick with me. What if our eyes just purely can't comprehend the pure being of energy that Scooby-Doo truly is? What if a dog is just the form that he chooses? Gozer the barbarian.
I think we've officially gone as far as we can go with this question. I think we've hit all the spots on the Scooby chart.
We've hit all the big touchstones.
Yeah, there's a big trope, I feel like, in Scooby movies where Scooby and Shaggy always fuck something up. They always are scaredy cats. And a big theme in this movie is that they're the brave ones at the end. But also there's a trope in many Scooby movies that Scooby is royalty or royalty based. And this movie hits every single trope. And like we were saying, the jokes don't land a lot of the time because it's just trope and hitting, oh, I'm going to repeat a word. This is for kids. And something we talk about a lot here is that some of the Scooby movies are more enjoyable when they have adult humor, especially for us as all 20-somethings. Kaylee, do you maybe just enjoy this era less because they're pivoting towards kids? Can we still appreciate a Scooby-Doo kids movie, or are we just too old now?
I mean, I feel like I'm enjoying each one of these less and less and less, because each one I'm like, oh my, it's an hour and 15 minutes long of just nothing really of value or substance. I feel like the live action movies spoiled us with Scooby-Doo content. they're too good, and now I compare everything else to those, and everything else is boring and bad in comparison. And all of my ratings since we watched the live action ones have been bad ratings, and I think that's because the live action movies are perfect and nothing else can compare.
Rosa, are you still able to enjoy a children's movie, which some Scooby movies are very clearly, some of the earlier ones, and even going into the 90s, and some of the live action based ones are very clearly maybe not for kids. This very clearly the brand pivoting for kids ages 6 to 12-ish to 15 at the oldest, like just that general target audience. Do you still find some merit in this movie, or is it just hard for you to be like, I would want to watch this one if not for this podcast?
This one, I feel like, let me preface my statement by saying I am a bad movie connoisseur. I love bad movies. I feel like I would watch this movie outside of this podcast, but only with company, not on my own, and for the pure bad value, because I'm not going to watch this movie and be satisfied by the story or the plot or the characters or anything. It has to be sort of a masochistic enjoyment, if you will.
Luke, do you feel, same question to you really, do you feel like you can still enjoy kids content maybe in a similar way that Rose is saying, to make fun of it a little, but just as like kind of a comfort background show? Or is it just when you're trying to watch something like this, you just take it too seriously? Does it ruin maybe a bit of your childhood that you think, oh, I really enjoyed this as a kid and now it's kind of crap to me?
Yeah, I don't even think kid me would have liked this movie. But like, I don't know, like I watch like modern kids movies nowadays, and like all I think about is like, that's not really realistic, especially this movie. I was watching it and I was like, that's kind of like a cheap way to get from point A to point B.
Mummies living? That's not realistic, says Lukey Becher.
Yeah, I'm more of I'm not, I don't really like to view content that way, but this movie made me think of those questions more than I wanted to. Yeah.
Ricky, do children's movies, do you think, prompt something in us as 20-somethings to maybe look at them a little bit more skeptical?
See, as we grow, so do our brains. So does our maturity. Ideally, some of us not so much. But I think as we get older, there is this primal nature inside of us that thinks it's cool to hate children's media, for a myriad of reasons, of course. But ultimately, this was bad. This was genuinely bad. I hated it. I don't know why. I think I do think that this came out in 2005, and in 2004 the live action movie came out, and that movie was a little raunchy compared to like a lot of other kids movies. So I do think that with maybe some of like the parent response to how that movie was, maybe this is where they were like, okay, we need to kind of start reeling it into more children focused instead of whatever James Gunn was thinking of doing.
Can I just speak my truth for a second here? I totally forgot. Ricky, what did you say to jog my memory? Ben, cut this out. Thank you. You're my editor now.
I said,
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a primal thing inside of our head that makes us want to crap on kid media. But no, this movie is bad. I hated it. The first Scooby-Doo live action movie came out in 2004. This came out in 2005. So maybe that this movie was kind of a response to some of the negative feedback by parents for the live action being too adult or too teen centered.
I remember now.
Okay.
So the whole title of this movie, Scooby-Doo, Where's My Mummy? Big disappointment, I thought. Not only does it sound like something they thought up in the room and then went with on the first pass, it doesn't have any sort of foreboding nature to the fact that they're dealing with mummies and ancient crypts and stuff. It's just a little pun, and I thought it was a little disappointing.
There are also two other Scooby-Doo mummy movies. There's Scooby-Doo and a Mummy 2, and then there's Scooby-Doo Mom Scares Best. And like, you already used a mom pun for the mummies, like,
Exactly.
try harder.
But this is awful timing because we started getting into the deep cuts, but I need to leave.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, and then we'll pick this up
Okay.
hopefully on Sunday, and we'll just start from like here because I have a lot more that I feel like we have to say. But go.
Okay, I didn't know where or if I would be able to say this at some point, but if you're somebody who likes mummies as much as I do, you'll notice that throughout the movie they'd read hieroglyphics incorrectly. Every time. That's all.
Hello again, Scoopsters.
Hello again, fools and ghouls.
We are back. It feels like 7 months where we had to end the first part of this podcast a little short. So, Luke, you now have a haircut. Ricky is now eating dinner. He hasn't eaten dinner in 7 months. I can't believe it. But we're back to talk about Scooby-Doo, Where's My Mummy? And yes, Ricky?
Am I allowed to show the logo of the soda can I'm drinking?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And we actually
product
ended off
placement.
last time with Ricky talking about how this film is after the live-action Scooby-Doo movies, which were a little notorious for having adult humor, and how that could affect the rebrand of Scooby-Doo. Ricky, do you just want to give us a refresher on your thoughts about this rebrand being mainly for kids only?
Does the audience need a refresher for them? Didn't they just?
Yeah, they heard it, but like, do you want to add anything else?
Okay. Well, so this movie came out just a year after the first live action one. And I remember reading about how James Gunn, who wrote and directed the live action movies, got a lot of backlash for making the live action movies kind of more centered around teens and adult humor, and how he wanted it to be even more raunchy, and how Warner Brothers probably wanted to stray as far away from that kind of reception as they could moving forward, at least animated wise. So I think that's maybe a reason why this one seems far more centered around children than the previous cartoons that you might have talked about.
Yeah, great. And just a question that I don't think I asked, and if I did last time, I'll cut this out. But does watching a kid's movie that is aimed maybe kind of in that gray area for adults and for kids, does that help a viewing when we watch it when we're older? Or can we still enjoy something like this even though we're older and it's clearly for kids? Just Rosa, to start, do you think this having like no adult humor at all and being specifically for kids, aside from maybe one or two things that we interpret or infer as adults, do you think that helps or hurts your viewing?
I think we already did this question.
Did I already ask it? If I did, God damn it. I should have listened to myself.
You should have. Your hubris.
So then we can get right into the music. We played Mummies, Rags, and Riches. Luke, you brought up the music. What about the music struck a chord with you?
Yeah, so I was watching Phineas and Ferb earlier today, and I was remembering how often that like the music from the show like slaps, absolutely slaps. And when I was watching this movie, I couldn't even remember. I can't even like recall one like lyric from the movie, one like tune. So like they didn't really spend that much time into the music department in going into this to this film. I think we're calling it a film, not a movie. But yeah, I think yeah, like there's obviously some shows or like movies that are have their music department are they put a lot of time into. And Scooby-Doo is not one of those, unfortunately, not this time.
Mhm.
I agree. I think
Ricky, yeah.
I think this movie kind of came out around the same era as like the Zombie Island and the Cyber Chase and everything, and those features had such great music, such as Terror Time, or the song that Shaggy sings about his alien girlfriend
Groovy, yes.
thing, Groovy, and those were great. Those were great songs. And then I don't know, and then the Mummy song in this one was terrible. It was so bad. I remember watching it and just like, I think I even turned the volume down and just looked at my phone for a little bit.
Yeah, like Ricky, would you
Yeah.
like have this song as like a ringtone, or would you ever like look it up on like YouTube
No,
and be like, man, I got to listen to this song? Because
I gotta say, when we were talking about what we were going to talk about before this podcast, pre-recording a little behind the scenes, it was a real mental anguish for me to try to even remember the title of this song. It was really digging into the deepest parts of my mind, and I think that says something.
yeah, I think they're just like pretty much inserted in there to just make the film of Scooby-Doo like 3 minutes longer, because they're just like running around. It's kind of I guess it's
Yeah.
kind of goofy, like the kids are watching it and they're like, oh, they're running around,
How do you get into that coffin? They
Yeah.
were just in the other one.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I guess it's kind of fun if you're looking at it from a pure like kid standpoint, which we should start doing.
yeah.
I think we should
That's
change our
true.
mindset on this movie.
I'm not okay, Ricky. Really, I'm gonna have to do something about that. I'm I'm not a child, so that's a bit tough. But I agree with you, Luke, that something I've spoken about in a few of these episodes is how the music is always just the full length songs are always just for these action sequences, and sometimes it feels like the action sequences are totally dependent on the music, and really it doesn't even matter what's happening in the action, because it's like plot, action sequence, plot, action sequence, third act, big twist, big reveal, something along those lines. That the music being kind of iffy on this one lends way to the action scenes just kind of dragging on a bit. Maybe it doesn't really add anything. There's a lot with the whole team trying to invade the pyramid and kind of steal, and then the obviously mystery gang following them. So I think there could be a lot more potential there. And my question based on this is, do you think there's a way that we can fix Scooby-Doo action sequences? Rosa, do you think there's something that you want to see from a Scooby-Doo action sequence so it's not entirely dependent on the music?
I really think the things that make Scooby-Doo action sequences special and what they are is the actions that they're doing. I kind of did like this one because it was there were some classic moments in there, like when they would disappear into one sarcophagus and appear from another, like I brought up before. That was nice. That was classic. I think the music most of the time should really just not be bad enough to make you notice it. And I did notice it this time, and I didn't like that. But yeah, I think if they just played on like the right tropes and everything and did, the standard stuff, it would turn out just fine.
Yeah, going off of that, like I think something that like other shows do that like make their music memorable is that the characters sing the songs. But like this is it's in this like movie, and I guess all other Scooby-Doo, like it's just like some random band jamming out some random like plot song, and like it's not like fun to listen to. Like in this, like some of my favorite like Simpsons songs, like the whole like city gets together and they sing a song, and it's kind of funny. And same with Phineas and Ferb, like the people like the characters sing the song, and I think that's a good way to, if you want music in stuff like TV and stuff like that, I think the characters, it's enhanced when the characters sing the song, especially if it's like an entire like song, not just like a part of a song.
I don't disagree. However, I will say that the previous DVD Scooby-Doo movies had songs from just random bands and they were really good. It's just that this one wasn't. Maybe they were just under a lot of pressure, just a lot of pressure to make a good song, and it wasn't good. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know. The other movies had such a good like formula to them, and I feel like this one tried really hard to copy it, and then it just fell on its face. Luke.
Speaking of formulas too, something we talked about was the third act twist that Velma is secretly a kind of villain, half villain. I think she was doing it for, worse, nefarious purposes and motivations. But something that we've been going over a bit is, how can we make the movie better? Like I just asked Rosa based on the action sequence. So Kalle, if you were fixing a large twist scale that it feels like the movie isn't really, the twist kind of can be whatever, and the rest of the movie isn't dependent on the twist because they always are like, this happened this way, and this is the explainer. And we as an audience are like, okay, sure. Is there something that you would fix about specifically the ending of the movie to make it more enjoyable? Do you like seeing that Velma is keeping something from the group? Or like, what would you add to just maybe give it a bit more spice?
I don't know that it's necessarily the twist at the end that's the problem with this movie, because I think there's a lot wrong with this one. And I know we talked a little bit about this before, where yes, Velma and Omar organized this whole thing to create a fake mummy army, but in the other Scooby movies from this era, there's like a real supernatural thing happening like alongside the rest of the mystery. So I think if there had been like actual mummies or like something happening and it wasn't just all Velma behind it, it would have been a lot more interesting.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of weird how Velma just drank the entire Nile River and made it disappear.
Yeah.
That was a scene I didn't really understand in the movie.
I didn't really understand the entire Nile River plot. Like,
yeah,
maybe I
where'd
didn't
it
pay
go?
attention to the movie enough, but like,
Oh,
I don't
didn't
like that. Like, villain just kind of came and went. I don't really know anything.
Yeah,
about
didn't
that.
the old cultist guy drink the river or dam it up illegally? And that was just totally unrelated to Velma's like meddling and whatnot.
Just worked out.
Yeah, I feel like that
Yeah.
takes a lot longer time than the time table they have on this movie. It's a pretty big river. I
Yeah.
feel
It's
like
the Nile. It's the biggest river.
it's the biggest river, right? So I feel like maybe we kind of
Is the
look
Nile
at
the
that
biggest
and
river?
just go, "Heh."
I think so.
I
think
thought
so,
the
too.
Amazon might. Okay, no, that makes sense. Okay, anyway.
Another question we always ask on every podcast, based off this is really up to your own morals and your values when it comes to a movie you're going to watch on a date. I'm not asking specifically first date, second date, but if you or a partner pick this movie out on a date, would it make it a good date? Is it a good date movie? Would you go on another date with this person? If this person picked the movie out, would you say, ew, gross, goodbye, leave my home? Or would you say, I'll go again? Kalle, to start. Whoever wants to hop in.
Yeah.
Go
okay.
ahead.
Okay. Yeah, if I was on a date with somebody and they put on a bad Scooby-Doo movie and they were like, let's watch this, I'd be a little weirded out. I think I'd be like already mentally packing my bags to leave. But like I would also never choose this movie because in my mind, I think the best like first date movie needs to have like some sort of kissing, some sort of like hand holding, because you need an in
Essential.
to be able to be like, let's do that. Or like if
On
they
the
kiss
first
on screen,
date?
yeah, on
On
the
the
first
first
second
date?
date maybe.
Yeah, Ricky, Lucas is a killer.
Yeah, I don't
Jeez,
mess around.
Louise, dude.
Yeah, but like
Luke is watching cartoon Scooby-Doo characters kiss and going,
Yeah.
we need to do that right
Yeah,
now.
we need to do that. It's a good idea. I don't know. Think about
Hey,
it.
You pause
think
it
about
midway
that?
through. Look at what they're doing. Didn't I pick a great Scooby-Doo movie? Ricky, do you think
Yeah, I know.
this is a good date movie?
I was having a lot of trouble with that question, but then Luke brought up a good point that if this is the movie that they choose to watch, you know, there are a ton of better Scooby-Doo movies, and they're like, we need to watch Scooby-Doo Where's My Mummy on this date. I think I'd watch it. I'd stay and I'd watch it. I don't know if I'd come back. They'd have to really sell me on it, or it distract me with conversations of fruitful intelligence.
Rosa?
I think it definitely just depends on like how they sell it to me. Like just like Ricky was saying, I think I'd be a little on the fence about it, right? But as somebody who has shown people the live action Death Note movie on the first date, I'm no stranger to bad movies on the first date. So if they had a good time with it and we were both like chuckling, giggling it up, having a great time, of course I'd have to investigate further, but it's definitely a red flag at first for me.
Yeah. I think this is a very mediocre Scooby movie. And if you're gonna watch a Scooby movie on the first date, you either have to pick one of the best ones, so one of the live actions, or Cyber Chase, or you have to pick one that's so bad that you just make fun of it the whole time. Like The Reluctant Werewolf is awful. This one is just like boring and mediocre all around, and I do not think it's a good date movie. I would not go on a second date with someone who picked this movie.
It's I think it's a good like makeout movie, you know. We're like, oh, let's just put this one on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you could do other things. You could talk while this movie's on. You could
Right. Or you can make out.
Oh, put a
Yeah.
DVD in the Blu-ray
of course.
player. Okay, let's go
Yeah.
way out. I have to say, I'm going to make the case. I'm going to disagree with basically all of you. I agree on the point that this is a mediocre Scooby-Doo movie. But I think it's a hilarious choice for a date movie based on only really two things. Kalle, I agree that it has to be easy to make fun of. You have to be able to take one element and make fun of it. And I think people turning into rock, turning into stone, and the weird kind of fearless secret agent type people, they're just really easy to make fun of. And if you want to get deep and have a deep discussion, I think it's open for that. But I think it's really easy to make fun of those people, or just to be like, that's weird. Look at that. I think the twist I would overhype so much to the point that when it happened, I'd be like, oh, fuck Velma. See this shit? See what's going on? And I would be an insane person. I probably wouldn't get another date, but I would be so insane at this twist that I would talk about it just the entire time and be like, you're not going to expect this shit. You won't believe this shit. You see how she blindsided her friends? I would never do that to you. You see how she did that? You know, something along those lines. I think because of those two reasons alone, I think it's a hilarious date movie. And if someone picked it out, I wouldn't love it, but I wouldn't be mad. I'd be like, okay, cool. I think it doesn't hamper on too long where you can get to the end and it's not like that's the end of the date already. Okay, we watched this one Scooby-Doo movie. Have a nice night. Here are your flowers.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's an interesting way to approach it. I've never thought about it like that because it would be very extremely funny. I do have to agree with you there.
Any movie that has people turning into rocks, I don't know why, but I am any movie that someone turns into like the Han Solo, their face is just like, I die laughing at it every time. Cartoon, not cartoon, it doesn't matter. So when it's even Velma and then it turns out it's fake rock, I still don't understand how it's a fake rock that she turned into, which means she had to she had to put a whole cast and plaster herself and then put it into a kiln somewhere and have it made and then take it back out and put it perfectly with like 6 seconds to spare.
Didn't she
Including
say,
we
the
don't know.
clothes.
it's like a good,
We don't
it's like a fast rock stuff?
we don't know how long she was in Egypt for. She could have had these like designed already.
She was planning that far in
true.
advance.
Yeah.
When
She's smart. She's smart.
There
She's
was-
smart and hot.
There was a time there's an unspecified amount of time between when they unearthed the tomb, right? and when the gang and the treasure hunters show up. So there could have been plenty of opportunity for that.
I don't like it. Ricky brings up a great question though, and one that I've always wondered. Velma is the smart person of the group. She wears glasses. She is smart. Those are her two characteristics in almost every Scooby-Doo movie. How smart do we think Velma really is? Based on this,
Do we want like IQ
I don't
points?
think she's smart at all. Only because like she can never find her glasses. Like in this movie, she dropped them and she was crawling on the ground when she dropped them. I think, right? Am I wrong? I might be wrong. But like she was crawling on the ground. She dropped them. She could have just picked them up. How bad is her eyesight? I don't know.
he's
I feel
probably
like a dumb
legally
person.
blind.
Maybe, but like, how dumb does she have to be to like not to like keep losing her glasses time and time again?
Do you think
Really?
she's
Taking this
so
literally.
book smart that her street smarts don't matter at all? Like it's not applicable because her book smarts are so out of this world.
Mhm.
I feel like even if she didn't have any street smarts and was only book smarts, there has to have been at least one book where somebody talks about a glasses chain, right?
There's this new invention, Velma. Guess what?
Velma, you're gonna lose your shit.
Yeah, this movie makes me question, though, her intelligence based off of how she's using other Scooby films that we've watched have used tourism to their advantage, and how this movie uses her being at this dig site. And basically, they could have just told these people no and hired security. But no, instead, they go through this whole big charade and plan to scare people away, even though her friends are there, which it's double dangerous, which, like, who knows what could go wrong. I'm thinking too much in this, but on my sake, I think she's like a megalomaniac and not like smart. How intelligent must she be, Ricky? Thoughts?
Okay, you guys, I mean this with all the love in the world. You guys are idiots, okay? I'm so sorry that Velma made one thing that you guys are like, oh, when she's not as smart, she
She
seems.
made one little oopsie.
I'm in this phone call right now are some of the most intelligent and passionate people I've ever met, and I've seen you all do incredibly stupid stuff. I'm sorry that she's not perfect.
Yeah, I guess
I'm
it was a
sorry.
mistake of Velma
What?
to drop her glasses.
I
I guess it was a
never
mistake,
considered
just
the
a
human
mistake.
element.
Yeah. Anyway, so yes,
Ricky is
she drops her
passionate.
glasses sometimes. She might not have the thought of buying a glasses chain. Maybe she tricked all of her friends to thinking that there was an evil ghoul wandering around ancient Egypt. We've all done things that we regret. I know I have. But ultimately, Velma is every bit of smart as she comes off, perhaps even smarter. And I like to think that there comes a time in Scooby-Doo lore where she outsmarts everybody and just goes on her own.
Hasn't that happened canonically in a movie at least once?
I don't
Like
know.
they have to come back together because Velma has like left and been a smart person,
that's-
and Shaggy like works at
that's-
the airport.
Yeah, that's the zombie one, isn't it?
Oh, I believe so.
that's-
Escape
that's
to Zombie
not-
Island.
That's not why she didn't just like leave. It's just like they parted their own ways. But to Ricky's
Oh,
point,
okay. Yeah.
that third bullet you were talking about, I don't know if everyone's done that. She's working with Omar, who's a prince. So it makes me believe that she is trying, more so than her friends, trying to help a republic of some kind, maybe of Egypt. I don't know if he's the prince of Egypt. That maybe she is thinking, Prince Omar. At first, I think we were questioning if she is hitting on him. I don't think that's it. I think she is trying to declare the Mystery Inc. as their own diplomatic country, essentially, and trying to establish, this is all metaphor, establish a relationship between two countries, Mystery Inc. and Prince Omar of Egypt. And I think that by doing that, who knows, we're learning a lot about networking. Maybe it'll help her network along the way. Maybe they'll get more mystery jobs. Maybe there are a lot of mysteries when it comes to the pyramids. I don't know. Kalle, is Velma smart? What's the end goal here?
Okay, Velma is for sure smart. I agree with Ricky. In the first live action movie, when the gang splits up, Velma goes to work for NASA, okay? Velma is very, very smart. And in this movie, she outsmarts everyone else in the mystery gang. Sure, she still loses her glasses, but like Ricky said, is she not allowed to make one mistake? She's not perfect. She's very hot, but she is not perfect, okay? She is allowed to make a mistake. And I will go on record to say Velma is very smart and the smartest one in Mystery Inc.
Smarter than all of you, even.
Yes.
Smartest one in
definitely.
Mystery Inc. is not necessarily a glowing endorsement, though. Have you seen those characters?
Sure.
Fred kind of shaky. Shaggy, his brains are fried. Scooby-Doo is a dog. Daphne,
Shaggy
I
and
believe,
Scooby
is more
solve
smart.
Shaggy and Scooby solve every mystery.
By dumb luck.
At some point,
Like,
there's no way after a certain point where it's just coincidence every time. I think Shaggy and Scooby are a lot smarter than they let on.
Could they
and
do it on their
just
own?
kinda-
Well, they say it.
But
They say it in sports all the time. Sometimes, they look at a guy and they say he's always in the right place at the right time. That's never coincidental. I kind of agree with. I kind of agree with the main point that at a certain point there can't be a coincidence. But something we talked about on the live action ones that I'm very interested to hear all of your opinions on a cartoon level is attractiveness of the Mystery Inc. gang. Because Kaylee just brought up how she believes Velma is attractive. Okay, and Kaylee, you just said,
We all agree.
do you believe this on every level? And I want to rank the Mystery Inc. members, and you can throw in any other character you want on this movie alone, because I think this is, Fred with the ascot, there's quintessential moments and aspects of these characters that we see throughout the entire Scooby-Doo media. So, Luke, if you want to start us off, not that you find any of these cartoon characters attractive, but if you had to rank them based on attractiveness, how would you do it?
I think they're in college. Is it so? It's okay. So
You're fine. You're not going to be arrested.
Yeah,
it's
so-
not a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Scooby is on the bottom because Scooby's a dog, and then I would say Shaggy
interesting.
is 4 because I don't know, just like a little skinny guy. I'm not really sure. I would say Velma 3, and that's a soft 3, not a hard 3. But Daphne at number 1, I have to say, 100%.
Please.
Daphne is, I think, the dream girl of everyone's lives.
Please
I
watch
would,
the wording, Luke. Maybe don't say soft and hard during the segment.
yeah. Fred at 2, he's well put together. So good for him. But Daphne, she's into fashion. She's into, like, if we're just going off attractiveness, she's into her appearance. She works on it. I have to give it to her, number 1. And she's beautiful. And she's cool, she's like, who wouldn't want to marry Daphne or watch it
Marriage.
or go on a date with Daphne and watch Scooby-Doo with her? Who knows?
This is 100% a trap question where I could have just had Luke answer this, and then we all could have stayed in silence and then went, okay, and then moved on. But Ricky, do you agree with Luke's assessment? Is there something throughout this movie that you see, you were very hard advocating that Velma's very smart. Does that lend way to her? Does that make her more attractive to you? What would be your personal rankings based on what Luke just said?
Okay, so for me, the hottest, most attractive character in the Mystery Gang is Daphne. Always has been, probably always will be. I love Daphne. I always have. Every iteration of Daphne is absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, great for me. I could look at her all day. She is the light at the end of my
Okay, yeah,
tunnel.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Number two, number 2 and 3 switch between Fred and Velma pretty frequently in my head. I like Fred. I like the himbo type of vibe he has, where he's just a dumb jock. But also Velma is great in her own right, very smart, very independent. I like that a lot. But then and then 4 and 5 is Shaggy and Scooby last, because Shaggy's just like a loser stoner, and Scooby's a dog. Also, Daphne's rich, like Luke said, and I really need a sugar mama, like really badly at this point.
We'll put your links down below. Rosa,
Thank you.
are you on the same train that Daphne is the most attractive member, and then everyone else kind of falls into place where you're moving around Fred and Velma, or do you have a spontaneous new ranking system?
I definitely have to say this. Okay, I believe Velma is the most attractive member of Mystery Inc. In this movie, definitely. Then being probably Fred. Fred second, for the same reason Ricky said. I love the himbo vibe. Then comes Daphne, then comes Shaggy, and then Scooby's not on the list because I'm not that kind of person. But I will say one thing. If we're not going specifically for this cartoon, in all of Scooby-Doo media forever, I believe that Matthew Lillard as Shaggy was the most attractive member of Mystery Inc. ever. And that's my thoughts on the matter.
Kalle, I feel like for this movie, you would definitely lean towards Rosa's ranking. Where do you land on the spectrum of attractiveness of Scooby-Doo characters, which I'm changing the title of this episode to?
Yeah, my ranking is very, very different than everybody else's. I'll start at the bottom. Scooby, last place, because he's a dog, and I'm not going to go there. Number 4, Fred. Hate the himbo energy, want nothing to do with it. Fred is number 4. Don't like him. Number 3 is probably Shaggy. Although if we were talking about live action, this would be very different. But I'm just talking general Scooby. And then number 2, Daphne. Number 1, Velma. I say it every episode. I find a way to bring it up. Velma is hot, and she has been since the orange leather jumpsuit in the live action movies. She will forever be hot. Hottest one in the mystery game.
Here's my problem with all of these rankings is for this movie, which is very Egypt-centric, it has a vibe. Daphne at one point is Cleopatra. Velma at one point is supposed to be Cleopatra-esque slash a ghost, which kind of works for me. So for that reason on this movie, I'll put Velma first. After that, I have to put Daphne. Fred and Shaggy, kind of, I can take them or leave them in some stance. So I don't fully agree with Kalle that I hate the himbo energy, but in this movie, I like him. So I'll put the spot above Shaggy. So my list looks very similar to Luke's. On a point about this movie as a whole, though, do we think it represents Egypt well? A question I asked on another Scooby-Doo movie that took place in Australia was if it would make you want to visit Australia. So I'll ask the same thing here before we get into our rankings of the movie as a whole. Would this want to make you visit Egypt? Does this movie sell Egypt well? Do you think as a kid watching it, you would feel like Egypt is even a real place? Luke, you want to start?
Yeah, there's a scene in the movie that I actually put down in my notes that there's a sandstorm. And if anybody has ever been in any sort of sandstorm, we all know that the sand gets in our eyes or like dirt or whatever. Like I remember one time in 8th grade, I was at the park and it was a little windy and I got dirt in my eye and it was like, I was rubbing it for like 2 days and it hurt so bad. It was just a little bit windy. Oh yeah. But anyways, there was a huge sandstorm in this place. And these people had their eyes wide open and there was no sand getting into their eyes. So, I guess it's kind of cool. The sand is, or the eyes are not affected by the sand in this part of the world, I guess. But yeah, so I guess that's 1 point Egypt.
I like it. That's your nitpicky thing. Scooby-Doo, Fred goes to the optometrist. What else were you going to add to it? Would you visit Egypt based on this movie alone? If you don't know what Egypt is and you watch this movie, or are you visiting?
Yeah, and there's also quicksand. I forget if we already talked about this, but there's quicksand in a scene of this movie, which is everyone's fear, like John Mulaney says in his sketch, everyone's fear as a little kid is quicksand. And I guess this is the only part in the world where quicksand actually exists is this little temple in Egypt. And so I guess that's 1 point taken away from living here. But yeah, I'd say overall, no. No, the sandstorms don't help, or the the sandstorms that don't hurt your eyes. They don't really help that much. And there's no there's only like hallucinated lakes there, and I don't know, like doesn't seem that cool. The movie doesn't sell it, the area, that well.
Ricky, does the movie do a good job selling Egypt? Are you on Luke's train that if you didn't know what Egypt was and you watched this movie, you would hate Egypt?
No, actually, I think one of the things that I really, really liked about this movie was how educational it was about Egyptian, like religion and history, about the pharaohs and the different gods that they celebrate and worship. I thought it was very informational. I really appreciated how much research I think went into this movie. It was all very basic level, but again, this is meant for children. So I thought it was a really cool introduction for a lot of kids into Egyptian history. I thought it was really sweet. I will agree with Luke on the fear that there's not much water. There's that one scene in the beginning where they're like, "We need water," and then the guide's like, "I'll bring you some water," and he just brings them to the empty Nile and doesn't really help him after that point. But if I didn't know what Egypt was and I watched this movie, I would think Egypt's pretty rad. Despite the fact that it's literally just a desert and then a big huge triangle and that's all you see.
Rosa, you now have two sides. Are you choosing one of those, or are you carving your own path?
I gotta say, as a big fan of mummies in general, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I've always been inclined to go to Egypt just to see the mummies. This movie definitely reinforces that. The one little scene in the marketplace when Fred and Daphne are walking around turned me off of it a little bit, just because I don't want to get drop kicked by any like swinging assassins or anything like that. That's always been a big no for me. But I think in general, if I didn't know what Egypt was, I would probably want to go there, especially because of the scene with I forgot who it was. Oh, it was also Fred Daphne sitting on top of the Great Pyramid of Giza, I believe. I would have loved to sit on top of that pyramid. That sounds sick. And I would have gone there thinking naively that I could just walk up and do that. Of course, I'm an adult now and I know I can't.
You fly all the way there thinking this will happen. Oh no.
Exactly. What do you mean it's a security hazard?
Kalle, are you taking a plane to Egypt?
I mean, I feel like this movie just is like a caricature of Egypt. Like, it just has the Sphinx and the pyramids, which is what everybody knows to be in Egypt. Like, and the Nile, except the Nile is somehow just gone in this movie. Like, I don't think it really gives us anything to be like, hey, look at this cool thing in Egypt that you didn't know we had. It's just like, it's literally everything that everyone already knows. So, I mean, in like a general sense, I would want to go to Egypt anyways, not because of this movie, because this movie doesn't do anything to like promote Egypt in any way that hasn't been done before. So
yeah, I just think it's neat, so I would go. And that's my entire I agree, all we see are the pyramids and some sand. And Luke's nitpick points about the hazards of being in Egypt are definitely worrisome to me. But if I'm heading there, I'll take a plane. I'll go there, obviously, post-COVID. To get into our final rankings of Scooby-Doo, Where's My Mummy? We're going to give, out of 10 Scooby snacks, you can give any decimal point you would like. We're going to give a nostalgic ranking for if you watched this movie as a kid, or maybe if you did watch this movie as a kid. It's completely up to you. If you don't want to give a nostalgic ranking, totally fine. And we're going to give a current day ranking. I'll go first, then Kalle, then you three, and we'll finish it up. I think my nostalgic ranking, based on me just remembering the Swiss alone and going, what the fuck, I'll give it a 6.75 because I was very high on it. And that made me very high on it. I'm not going to give it an extremely low current day ranking because I think it works on some levels. I don't think it's the most boring. I don't think it drags on. And I think the twist held up for me, even though I was diving deep into it. I think it just holds up that it's weirder than any other Scooby-Doo movie I've seen, even though the animation isn't weirder. And for that, I'm going to give it a 5 flat for my current day ranking. Kaylee, what are your 2 rankings out of 10 Scooby Snacks?
For my nostalgia ranking, I'll give it a 5 out of 10 because I just remembered it being very down the middle, nothing great, not horrible. Was never my favorite. I watched it like maybe a couple times before this episode. And then current day ranking, I'm going to keep it at a 5. It's not the worst one we've watched. It's not great by any means. It's just a normal Scooby movie, so 5 out of 10.
Now let's go Rosa, Ricky, and we'll finish it off with Luke.
I think for a nostalgic rating, I'm gonna have to say a 6.5. For all the same reasons I said at like the beginning of the episode. I'm a big fan of Mummies. I'm a big fan of Scooby-Doo. Of course, when I was a kid and I didn't know anything better, I was gonna love this movie regardless. I think for a modern day ranking, I might have to swing down to like a 3 or a 4 maybe. Just because, well, I'll say a 4. The thing that saves it from being a 3 is that even though I have seen this movie as a child, the twist at the end was still kind of surprising to me. I didn't see it coming. When it happened, I was like, oh wow, that's crazy. Haha. But yeah, I think it was all right. Definitely not the worst ranking I could give a movie.
For me, nostalgic rating, probably a 0 because I didn't watch it as a child, and I'm glad I didn't. It was terrible. As a kid, I probably wouldn't have paid attention to it at all. As a kid, I wasn't really into mummies like Rosa was. I would really only watch it for the Scooby-Doo factor. Current rating, I'd probably give it a 10. I thought it was really great. I thought it was some of the things I liked was that the bad guys in the movie were pure evil. There wasn't any like moral ambiguity. I thought that they were very clearly these are the bad guys and they don't care about doing good at all. I thought the visual gags were pretty funny. There was the scene where someone sneezed dust onto Scooby's nose and he brushed it off with a little dirt pan. I thought some of the cinematography was good. There was that one shot of Rock Rivers where he has the camera placed just in front of his head to make it look like he had the camera head. I thought that was a really interesting choice for a child's movie. Ron Perlman as Hotep, Jeremy Piven as Rock Rivers. This is a very star-studded cast. I thought that was really cool. Nice Mummy reference with having the character from the Mummy play the same character basically, and it was very educational for children and even for me overall. Despite its flaws, pretty good. I yield the rest of my time.
This is the most surprised I've been, and yet the most I've agreed. Wow. Thank you, Ricky. And Luke, tough act to follow. Your final ranking, nostalgic and current day. Any decimal point you want to add, 10 Scooby Snacks.
Yeah, I don't think I saw this movie when I was a child, but so I guess like a not applicable for this rating. But I'm gonna like try to shift this rating. I think if I were to show this to my kids, one day in the future, I think they would enjoy it, and I think they would remember it well. So I think the nostalgic rating for my future children would be like a solid 7, maybe a 6 or like a 6.5, even in the middle. Who knows? But you know what? Maybe that wouldn't even exist. I have to have kids first in order to be able to certify that rating.
That means get on it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think after watching it, I was really thinking, do I like this movie? Do I like am I okay with this movie? I think I would choose to watch a handful of different children's content movies before I would choose watching this one. I think ever again. I don't think I will ever watch this movie again. I'm going to be honest. That's a pretty big dock against the movie, because like movies like I don't know, Up or Toy Story, like those like good movies, or no, they're great movies, but those are like kids movies. I don't know if I would say they're exactly kids movies, but like movies kind of designed more to children. They're good because I want to watch them again. I don't think I would ever want to watch this movie again. Yeah, so I'd say, I'm going to throw a 2. Throw it a 2. Yeah, 2. I don't think it goes anything higher than a 2. I didn't rate it well on Letterboxd. So yeah, I like nothing really memorable, but I think if I were a kid, I would enjoy it more. I never saw it as a kid. I don't think I really watched that much Scooby-Doo as a kid. I do have this one memory of this one time. I was at a play date with this kid that lived a couple blocks away from me, and he was playing Scooby-Doo in the background, and we were just like doing other stuff. But that was like one of the only few times I watched Scooby-Doo, and yeah, but yeah, overall, I guess it was just chilling out of 2.
And I really can't wait till you have kids, because when they turn 6, I've decided I will call you up and I will say it's time, and you'll go, time for what? Who is this? And I'll go, it's Ben. You have to show them Scooby-Doo, Where's My Mummy? And then maybe you'll revisit it then. Who knows? I wouldn't put that big asterisk on it now. Thank you guys all so much for being on this half and half episode of the podcast that took 7 months in between halves. Can't believe we let go that long. Kalle, let's hear the outro.
Ruh-roh. Looks like we're all out of time. We'll see you next time on A Pod Named Scooby-Doo.
Are you very
Bye,
excited for a
everyone.
special guest next time?
I didn't do that on the episode before this one, did I?
God damn it. You didn't. I guess you didn't. Okay, that's fair. Well, no, did you do it on David's?
Yeah.
Then
do
yeah.
we have to be here for this?
Yes, this is coming out after David's. So then yes.
Okay. You want me to redo it?
Do you want to? It's up to you.
I'll do it. Okay.
You don't have to do the rut row. Just do the Michael Vito.
I'll do the whole thing. Ruh-roh. Looks like we're all out of time. Once again, we had to bump Michael Vito Valentino, but that was fine because we had 3 way better guests, and we'll see Michael next time on A Pod Named Scooby-Doo.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
This
Yeah,
was
it
the
was a lot of
highlight of
fun.
my year.
Yeah.
This is probably the highlight of my life. I don't know if it's ever going to get any better from here.
Mummies, rags, and riches better drop out of the fight. 'Cause mummies, rags, and riches are all that is here tonight.